Tyrell for your answer. Yes, so make sure you have this written down, and we are going to go ahead and start inverse functions today. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through what our activities for today are. So today we're doing notes on inverse functions, and on the back of those notes, we have our properties. So both of those sets are on the same sheet right here. If you want to print it out, if you do not want to print it out, no big deal. It's easy to copy down on a sheet of paper. And then your asynchronous time is going to be find the inverses practice. It's going to be like a little practice quiz. And then you have homework to submit, okay? So let me show you.
Can you put the warm-up back up really quick?
I will post it. It'll be on the video after class, okay?
Okay.
For this inverses practice, this is going to be like a practice quiz. I want you to try really hard on this. You only have 3 attempts. The highest score of your 3 attempts will be your final score, and you have to make a 7 or higher to continue on to the next one. I think I didn't actually set that, but please try to make a 7 or higher. If you struggle with it, save it for a little bit. You can set up a meeting with me on when is this due? You have until the 14th. It's due on the 9th. It's due tomorrow, but you have until the 14th. So if you need to, set up a meeting with me and I can talk you through any of the problems. So you'll do this. It's all on Canvas. There's nothing you have to write down and then submit. It's all through Canvas. And then your homework, you're finding the inverse equations of the following functions. There's 8 of them, and you submit it just like you submit your normal work, okay? Let me let Olivia in. Welcome, Olivia. And we are going to go ahead and start these notes. Okay, so we're just going to run through all the notes. If you have questions, please ask me to stop or slow down. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we're talking about are what inverse functions actually are. Okay, so I'm going to write down a definition. An inverse function is a function that undoes the original function. Okay, so whatever the original function does, the inverse function is going to go in and it's going to undo it. It's going to take it back to the original. Okay, so I'm going to write out a map, kind of like when we first started, with my x's and my y's. And I'm going to put in maybe 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6 right here. So maybe 1 maps to 5, 2 maps to 4, and 3 maps to 6. Okay, when the arrows are pointed to the right, this is going to be our function f. Now, if we could flip all of those arrows around, okay, going the opposite direction, and this would make it our inverse function. So if I flip each of these arrows around, it's like we're doing our inverse function instead. So the inverse is going to do the opposite of whatever our original function was doing. Okay, so Jordan and Olivia, I believe you guys just both came in. We're taking some notes right now. We've done our warm-up for today. I will post the recording of this class in the activity 1 for today after we're done together. So you'll be able to catch up that way. This is literally all of the notes that we've taken, so you guys should be okay. And please stop me if you have any questions. Okay, so this notation right here with the little -1 up here means F inverse. Okay, it means that we're doing the inverse of F. So for this function, all of the f of x values are 1 went to 5, 2 went to 4, and 3 went to 6. But then our f inverse function flips all of those points. They're going to go in the opposite direction. So my inverse function is going to have 5, 1, 4, 2, and 6, 3. What questions do you guys have so far about inverse functions? Okay, if there are no questions, I'm going to go through these steps for actually finding the inverse function, okay? So there's going to be 4 steps. The first step is to rewrite as y equals. Okay, so after that first step, rewriting as y equals, we're going to swap or interchange x and y. So I'm going to make up a function real quick for you guys to see us see the steps as we go. So my function is going to be f of x equals 3x plus 6. That's my original. So for step 1, I'm replacing my f of x with y equals 3x plus 6. Now, when I say swap the x and the y, I mean where there's a y, I'm going to write an x. Where there's an x, I'm going to write a y. Okay, what questions do you guys have about that so far? Now, in step 3, we're going to solve for y. Okay, so I'm solving for this y that's in the middle of all this stuff on the right-hand side. Okay, so in step 3, I need to get all those numbers away from the y. So I need some help with this. Jaikeem, are you here? Iban, are you here?
Yes.
Perfect. What can I do to get things away from the y value first? What's the first thing I can move?
The 3.
So if we move the 3, which could be fine, I would end up with a fraction around this x. And it's kind of nice to avoid having to do a lot of dividing. So maybe let's try this first. How can I get rid of this plus 6?
Subtract.
Perfect. Minus 6, minus 6. So on the left-hand side, I get x minus 6. And on the right-hand side, I end up with just 3y because the plus 6 and minus 6 cancel out. Thank you very much. Rashani, are you here?
Yes.
Thank you. So I have this 3 with the y right now. What operation is going on between 3 and y? Is this being added, multiplied, divided, subtracted? What's going on right here?
Nothing.
No, there's something going on. What's 3 and y? What's going on between those two?
I think they're being multiplied.
Yes, I was asking Rashani though. So Rashani, what is the opposite of multiplication?
Division.
Yeah, so I'm going to divide both sides by 3. Thank you, Rashani. Okay. So when I do that, these 3's cancel out and I end up with x minus 6 over 3 equals y. Now we have solved for y. Y is by itself. So y is by itself. Okay, this means it is solved for y. Okay. Now the very, very last step is to replace y with f inverse of x. Okay? Remember that we say this as f inverse of x, not f negative 1x. It's f inverse of x. All right, so in step 4 right here, I'm just going to rewrite this with f inverse of x instead of the y. If you would like, you could rewrite it so the f inverse comes first and it's on the left-hand side. You also could simplify this so that you had x over 3 minus 2. If you do not want to simplify, that is also totally fine. Okay, but that is our inverse function. What questions do you guys have about that whole process?
Is that paper uploaded so I can print it?
It is, yes.
Okay.
It is titled, let me see if it's up there. Let me go back. I believe it's titled like lesson 9. Come on. It's the only hyperlinked thing. Oh, it's lesson 5 inverse functions guided notes. That's where it is. Okay, so you can just look at that and it'll come out. All right, now there are some practice problems where I'm going to have you guys practice. Before we do those practice problems, since we only have 45 minutes together, I would like to go over the properties on the back, okay? And then we're going to come back to the practice. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over the page. I will post the completed document on Canvas on activity 1 for 9/8/20. So you guys will be able to go back and look at this if you missed anything, okay? All right. So properties of inverse functions. So the very first property is going to be if x comma y is a point on the graph of f of x, then y comma x is a point on the graph of f inverse of x. Okay? So we have x, y, and then it switches to yx. Yx is going to be on the inverse function. What questions do you guys have about that? Okay, so these practice problems are going to be pretty straightforward. So we are going to go through these before we get to property 2. So it says if the ordered pair 2, -5 is on the graph of f, so because it's on f, that means that it must be like this. It must be x, comma, y. What ordered pair must be on the graph of f inverse? Remember that f inverse must be y, comma, x. So we need to flip it. Okay, so Amar, are you there?
Yeah.
So what should my point, so the point on the original was 2, -5. What should my point be on f inverse?
-5x.
-5, -2, and then the x value was? What was the x value on the original?
What was that? I don't know.